It's another edition of the Wrap Up Show with John and Jim. We're presented by Mark Nimitz at Farmers Insurance. Happy New Year. When is this lockout going to end? We'll get into that in a moment. But as always, if you are a baseball fan, specifically a Padres fan, we've got year-round exclusive Padres content for you. Please hit that subscribe button that Jim's about to point to. There it is. It's down below. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Like our videos. And follow us on Twitter as well. At John Schaefer, at Jim Russell SD. So when will this lockout end? Well, let's start by telling you about our title sponsor, Mark Nimitz, over at Farmers Insurance. If you have needs for auto, home, renters, or life insurance, and you're a San Diegan, let Mark Nimitz help. He's a huge Padres fan. He's a lifelong San Diegan. If you own an electric vehicle, he can help you lower your rates. If you want to save over $440 in 2022, he can help you do that. He's got over a decade of experience in insurance. He's got great customer service and communication. With the new year, if you're a supporter of the Wrap-Up Show and you have insurance needs, we've got a link down below in the description. You can get to Mark's website. Again, you can save over $440 this year. We wouldn't be able to do the Wrap-Up Show without the support of Mark Nimitz. Please click that link down below and find out how Mark can help you and your family with your insurance needs.
Yeah, reach out to Mark. Let Mark help you save money on your insurance. All his information is above my head. His phone number and his email address, mnimitz@farmersagent.com. That's mnimitz@farmersagent.com. When you reach out to him, as John said, let him know the Wrap-Up Show sent you.
All right, so here are the issues facing both of the sides, and then we'll go through some of the scenarios in terms of when this lockout is going to end. The issues, Jim, and we've talked about them, I think, briefly or at times over the last couple of months, but you're talking about service time, the structure where players don't get to free agency until after 6 years of service time. We'll hear from Rob Manfred on that in a moment. The competitive balance tax, which I think the owners like. The players probably want that to change to some extent. And then the potential playoff expansion as well. And remember, playoff expansion may or may not really be deemed valuable from the players' perspective, because with more teams that are in, does it make it even more likely that we could see some level of tanking or less spending? Because if you're letting half the team in the postseason, what's the real reason for owners to spend when half of the teams are getting into the postseason? So there are some issues at hand. I think we both agree, Jim, that we don't envision this coming to an end at some point in January, right? Like, this is going to play out at least into February.
Oh, 100%. This is not even close to ending. I feel like they're not even talking. There's no schedules of anything to talk about. Baseball continues to drag its feet through the mud with everything they do. They don't know how to be progressive at all with anything. They don't know how to not cater to the fans, but understand where the fans are. Like, they don't, it just feels like they don't care. They don't care. It feels like that because right now they're becoming, every day that passes, more and more irrelevant. I know there's no baseball technically right now, but with no offseason, with no free agent signings, with no trades, you're getting nothing. And you just look at the other sports, and this is like a totally different topic, but it just feels that like baseball wants to be a part of the big kid table, and they don't know how to do it. And they keep messing up, and they keep doing things that will prevent them from being a part of the big kid table. And this is another one of them. It's just pissing off the fans. It's making people upset. It's making people just not really care. And you're looking at these two sides and you're like, guys, why can we not get something done? Like, what is the problem here? Obviously, it's always money. It's always about money. But there's not going to be a deal even talked about being done until closer to the start of the season. They don't have to do anything right now because there's no baseball games.
Mm-hmm.
But once we start getting closer to actual real baseball games, I'm not talking about spring training, I'm talking about opening day, then I think that's when you'll start seeing things being heated up. And if they can't get a deal done by the time of opening day, or at least halfway through spring training, I'll understand if they miss some spring training games. Spring training games is whatever anyway. It's who cares? But if they miss any games this year because these doofuses can't get a deal done, they just continue to shoot themselves in the foot even more. It's
Okay.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I agree with everything you just said. Okay, so let's lay it out there. I think January, we both agree. I would put the odds somewhere near 0%. I really would. I
Less
would
than
say
zero?
it's right. I don't think the deal gets done in January. I would say if you're a fan of spring training, I think the owners are. They make money and the players don't. Players aren't paid, by the way, during spring training. I think the owners would prefer to have all of spring training because there's money in their pockets. And I think a soft deadline to have all of spring training is probably around the first week of February. I'd be surprised if the deal was done by the first week of February. I would put a deal as possible in the first 2 weeks of February. I'd put it more likely to be, I don't know if probable is the right word, but a better chance of it getting done the final 2 weeks of February. And then I think ultimately you're looking at some type of soft deadline around March 1st to March 10th to play March 31st, Jim. And the reason I say that is when we had the 2020 situation and the stoppage because of the pandemic. Remember, they basically had, was it a 3-week ramp up? They wouldn't go shorter than that.
There was didn't get a deal done though. That's the whole thing here is they had a deadline, and usually deadlines create action and deadlines create.
But 2020, didn't they have a 3-week ramp up just to get the season going in the midst of the pandemic? Because the players wouldn't acquiesce to less than that, right? It wasn't like they said, "Hey, we're coming back July 1st," and they got together June 25th, right? Wasn't there a multiple week ramp up?
Yeah, like it was a soft spring training. They were doing like simulation games at Petco.
Yeah, maybe it was only a couple of weeks. I forget the length of that. But I would be surprised if spring training was less than 3 weeks, just from the starting pitching perspective. Wouldn't you think you'd have some type of ramp up? Like the deal doesn't get done March 20th and then have big league games March 30th, right?
Right. There is 0.0% chance that if and when this deal gets done, like say it gets done middle of spring training, or say it gets done, God forbid, like the day before opening day, there's going to be a ramp up time. You can't have guys just come in and then just go play a season. You need to like get ready. And it's mostly for the pitchers. Hitters, I think, would be fine.
Yeah, definitely.
But you got to get those pitchers ready. And we saw what happened in 2020. Just a lot of pitchers that were really good. They did not adapt well to how that season went. Because their routines were completely thrown off. And the ramp up time, I think, hurt some pitchers. I think the short season hurt some pitchers, mostly relievers, I want to say. But there's going to have to be some type of warm up, ramp up time, spring training wise, before the season started. And I'm just like, you talk about 2020, even with the pandemic, even with the world seemingly crumbling around us, they still could not come to an agreement. Like it was, it just, that to me is why we're here. And it doesn't make any sense to me. That they were fighting over money during the worst pandemic of our lifetime, in the midst of a time where we had no answers about the vaccine. We had no idea what was going to happen with COVID. Everyone was scared. Things were all shut down. And they couldn't come to an agreement. They couldn't put, things aside and be like, guys, look, we need to do this for the fans. It's not about us. Like, we understand. But again, millionaires and billionaires, and you hear that saying all the time. What do billionaires love more than anything else? They love more money. And that's what I feel like the owners are. I will take the player side every single day of the week. Like, I am pro player 100%. The owners, to me, at times can kick rocks, but they have to be there, because without the owners, you don't really have the sport. You don't have teams. You don't have revenue. So they need to be there. But again, it's just so frustrating to me hearing some things, like especially what Rob Manfred said about some of the points in this discussion that are going to come up, and the fact that he's saying what he's saying, and this is where the owners stand. I just don't. I'll never get it. I'll never understand it, and it's just so frustrating, man.
It is frustrating. And by the way, I just looked it up. The 2020 summer camp was 3 weeks. Players reported July 1st. Games weren't played until July 23rd. So if you had 3 weeks of ramp up in the summer 2020, there is no way that they can get a deal done in mid-March and play March 31st. You have
Right.
to have a deal done by like March 7th to report March 10th to have any shot of playing March 31st. And by the way, there's a lot of motivation to play March 31st. Neither side wants to lose money. They did
Could you
lose money in
imagine?
2020.
Could
No,
you
and it's an
imagine?
awful look. It's a terrible look,
Oh
to your
my
point, in
God.
terms of relevancy among the major sports. What this country's gone through, what people have gone through the last 2 years. Play baseball. Like you said, it's millionaires fighting with billionaires, and there's people that are struggling to get by. So it's very unrelatable for most people. And I'm with you. It has to get done by March 31st. And I think it does because there's money in the line for those billionaires and the millionaires. Let's hear from Rob Manfred. This was going into the lockout. So about a month ago,
December 3rd.
December 3rd. Okay, literally a month ago. This was Manfred on players getting to free agency sooner and why the union opposes that, or the owners do.
Rob, what about the union's proposals was bad for the sport, bad for fans, and bad for competitive balance?
Let's take 5-year free agency. I think that we already have teams in smaller markets that struggle to compete. Shortening the period of time that they control players makes it even harder for them to compete. It's also bad for fans in those markets. The most negative reaction we have is when a player leaves via free agency. We don't see that making it available earlier. We don't see that as a positive.
Well, hold on, Jim. I mean, 6 years to free agency is longer than the NBA. It's longer than the NFL. While it might be seen as a negative when a free agent leaves the market, it's seen as a massive positive in the market where the free agent lands. For example, San Diego landing Manny Machado. Now, I know that wasn't right out of him becoming a free agent. He left Baltimore for LA before he ended up in San Diego. But I don't see how that would be. Listen, all these teams are in the same league. If Pittsburgh can't afford their players, that's on Pittsburgh's ownership. What's the difference between Pittsburgh and San Diego? Peter Seidler's investing in his club, and the owner of the Pirates isn't. The idea that you can't field a competitive team with players that are under your control for 5 years. For NBA contracts are what, 4 years? NFL deals are 4 years outside of first-round picks. Those are 5-year deals. 6 years is overly aggressive, and it's a reason why salaries have been kept so low for so long. I mean, you got guys fighting for MVPs, Jim, like Vlad Guerrero Jr. or Tatis. I know Tatis got the deal. You got guys making $500,000. They're top 5 in MVP voting. In what other sport is the system set up like that?
First of all, can we agree that Rob Manfred's the worst baseball owner in baseball?
You mean commissioner?
Or at least the worst commissioner in all of sports? Can we agree on that right now?
Yeah,
okay.
I agree.
He is the worst commissioner in all of sports. Full stop. End of story. Okay, with that out of the way, he is clueless. He's clueless. If I'm Juan Soto, I'm hearing that. I'm like, dude, F you, bro. I'm not going to sacrifice my entire 20s to be with a team that is clearly tanking. Clearly we got rid of everybody here. There's 0.0% chance I want to stay here. Maybe he does. But if I'm Juan Soto, I'm like, dude, yeah, I'll be here for the amount of time that I'm, under control, which is what, 5 years right now? 4 or 5 years?
Well, Soto is still under control for, at least the next, I don't know what it is 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years?
Yep.
Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to stay there for another 8 years before I become a free agent? And by the way, what if guys come in the league at 23 years old and they become really good, but they can't
look at like an Aaron Nola or Austin Nola. I was whoever the Padres have, Austin, right?
Right. But what if Mackenzie Gore, who is now 23 years old, I believe,
right?
I could be wrong, but he's getting older. He's not 19 years old. What if Mackenzie Gore comes in the league at 24 years old and he becomes a stud, right? Well, if this new rule that Rob Manfred and the owners want to have free agency, start later in a person's career, they want teams to have control of a guy for a longer period of time. Mackenzie Gore is not going to be able to cash out until he's 33 years old. And by then he's past his prime. And he's not going to be able to make the money that he would be able to make if he became a free agent or around 28, 29. Instead, he's becoming a free agent like 33, 34. It's so stupid what he is saying because the players will never agree to that.
Okay, a couple of things. Well, Mackenzie Gore's 22. The service time length has been 6 years, and the owners want to keep it that. It's actually less of a concern, in my opinion, for someone like Mackenzie Gore, who got paid out when he signed. It's more of a concern for someone like Austin Nola and Jay Cronenworth, who weren't first-round picks, who develop into big league caliber players in their mid-20s as opposed to their early 20s, or Tommy Pham, who doesn't reach the big leagues until later in his career. Those players should have a mechanism, in most people's opinions, including ours, to get to free agency sooner. The idea that Austin Nola has never been a free agent and is 32, that's not going to happen with Mackenzie Gore. Mackenzie Gore is either going to make it or not. He's 22. Right. Even if he makes it 24, he'd be a free agent by 30. And if these rules change, it could be earlier. And Gore got all this money to sign. But if you're Austin Nola and you're in your 30s, and listen, it's all about perspective and relatability. But in baseball terms, when you're making $500,000 in Major League Baseball as a regular, and then in other sports, those rookie deals are paying players $2, $3, $4, $5 million per year or more. Mm-hmm. That's why the minimum, that salary minimum, first of all, has to be raised immediately. It's probably got to be doubled from $500,000 to $1 million. Otherwise, you got players, like you said, that are in the primes of their career that never have a chance to cash out. And then the other thing that has to change is the service time has to be shortened from 6 years. I don't know if the players agree to another deal, even if the minimum is raised, if service time isn't lowered from 6 years to 5 years to become free agents for the new CBA. Otherwise, you're dealing with the same issues. Even with a higher minimum, you still never get that opportunity to make that $50 million deal, that $75 million deal, or $100 million deal. So I think that is a critical issue. I think another critical issue for the players is tanking, which in turn is crazy because expanded playoff might lead to more opportunities to tank, because what's the motivation to spend if the postseason goes from, it was a 4-team postseason, Jim, as late as the mid-90s. You had division winners. Now it's a 12-team postseason that they want to expand to either 14 or 16. If half the league or more gets in, why would you spend it all if you're an owner?
And the whole notion that these smaller market teams can't compete with the big boys, that's false. They can compete. They just choose not to. Like, they have the money. I think the only team in baseball that I would say, yeah, they're broke is, well, actually, no, the Oakland A's. Their owner's rich as hell. And he decides that he's not going to do anything with their team. And first of all, the owner's the problem there. Like, the owner needs to go in Oakland. But Pittsburgh, what's preventing Pittsburgh from signing big players? What's preventing the Royals from signing big players? Like, they just won a World Series like less than 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. What's preventing Miami? What's preventing the Padres? Yeah. What's preventing any other team I named that's considered small market from spending money? Nothing.
It's a fallacy. Peter Seidler proved it. You're right, 100%. Right. Peter Seidler has probably put more pressure on the Kansas Cities and Pittsburghs than any individual in any sport.
Yeah.
Because it's proven that you don't have to be in the nation's largest market to spend like the Dodgers or the Yankees.
Right. It's not about just the Dodgers and the Yankees. Like, when's the last time the Dodgers and the Yankees, mostly the Dodgers, won a legitimate World Series championship in a 162-game season?
33 years.
Exactly. Well, the Yankees won in 2009, but still.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the Dodgers. But yeah, it's been a while.
Not like
either way.
Those two teams win a World Series every single year. And that's just not how this works. And because baseball's such a crapshoot at times, you have no idea what's going to happen. The fact that there needs to be a limit, like there needs to be a spending limit where each team needs to spend a minimum.
So you want a floor?
Like, yeah, I want a floor. I want every team in baseball to spend minimum on your entire payroll. Like what, 80 to 90 million?
You know the problem with that, though? The reason the players fight that, they think if you get a floor in this CBA, a cap is coming in the next. So by setting a floor, what would prevent you from setting a cap?
Cap.
Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword because if you set it at 80, but then, 6 years from now, they set the max at 180, but you got teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees spending 240 or even the Padres, then isn't that capping spending also?
Inflation means that in 6 years, it's going to be like 260 million. Like, you know what I mean? 180 million would be cheap.
Yeah.
I get that. I understand it.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you can't just have teams roll out there with a payroll of $25 million.
I agree with you. Miami,
Max
Oakland,
Scherzer's making more than Pittsburgh
A team.
and Miami combined
right.
in 1 year. That can't happen. That's not going towards the competitive balance that people say they want. It's just stupid. There needs to be a system where each team has to spend. Like, isn't in the NFL, I don't know, I might be wrong.
Yeah, 90% of cap.
Right. They have to spend 90%
Something
of their
like
cap.
that. And so, same with NBA. It's close to 90% of cap. That's why in those NBA deals, you get all the contracts moving. Because without
and you
moving
also
contracts,
see these massive, stupid deals to start a free agency. You're like, that guy got $65 million.
But they have to, right? But they have to spend. Yep.
And that's the thing with baseball. These owners have money. Like, there was a revenue of over $2 billion made in 2019, I think. And so they're not poor. They make money. These teams make money, and they need to start spending money. I'm sick and tired of these owners of small market teams saying they can't do it. Well, guess what? Like you said, Peter Seidler proved you wrong.
Let's lay out the percentages of when this lockout ends in a moment. But first, if you are looking to stream in the new year, use StreamYard. We've got a special offer for our viewers, 2 weeks free, no credit card required. Maybe you want to start a YouTube channel or a podcast, or you want to chat with friends, or you want to do more video. Whatever you want to do, it could not be easier. That's what we use for the wrap-up show. We've been doing it for the last 3 or 4 months. We literally, I think, set it up day of. Jim has used it, but it's super simple. 2 weeks free for our viewers. No credit card required. Jim, it's been super convenient and easy to use, right?
StreamYard is the #1 free streaming platform on the internet. Also, you can pay for upgrades, and we're giving you 2 weeks free in the description, in our description below, the link. So it is the #1 streaming platform on the internet. It is super easy. Sign up first day. You can start using it. If you have a buddy that lives across country and you always talk about starting a podcast with him or them, two women podcasts, guy, whatever you want.
Right.
StreamYard StreamYard's the way to go. And it's great because you can stream on multiple platforms at the same time. You can convert videos into MP3s. If you don't want to do video, you can make it into a podcast that uploads on your favorite platform. So I highly recommend, if you're thinking about starting a YouTube and you don't know where to start with StreamYard. Trust me.
All right. Again, that link is down below. 2 weeks free, no credit card required. All right. Let's lay out some percentages. Tell me if you agree or not. Here's what I'm going to say. This deal gets done before February 1st. There's a 1% chance on 1 in 100. Okay.
Less.
Jim says less. I'll say the deal gets done the first 2 weeks of February. Therefore, if you didn't get it done by then, you'd be missing spring training. I'd give it 24%. So now I'm at 25%.
Less.
So you say less than that in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'll give it another 25% chance it's done by March 1. So I'm saying there's a 50-50 chance. You know what? I'm going to say 49%. I'll say 49-51. It's done by March 1st. What do you think?
I would agree with that. I say March 1st is the true, not deadline day, but the true day where if they don't have made significant progress by then, or at least both sides look at March 1st as a day where we need to get a deal done right now, then we're in trouble. Then we're in trouble, I feel like.
And I'd say really the last 50% or 51, I'd say there's a high likelihood the deal gets done by, I'll throw out, the first week of March 7th, 8th, 9th. And then I do think there's a scenario, maybe a 5 or 10% chance, Jim, because we know this sport and we know how contentious it can get. I think there's a scenario where sides don't budge and they do cost themselves money. I think it's idiotic and stupid to the point we've discussed, but you have to remember the commissioner of this league is Rob Manfred. We went through the 2020 pandemic season together. So I do think there's a scenario where they do miss games. But I would say, in my opinion, there's probably an 85 to 90% chance it gets done at some point without losing regular season games. But you got to throw out the caveat, 10% or so, that they lose games and they fight, because that's what these two sides have done for the better part of the last century.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like they're not going to miss any regular season games because that would be extremely idiotic and just damage your sport even more than it already has been damaged. So I think and I hope that the two sides will come together and get a deal done before opening day. I do think 100% chance we'll miss spring training games. I don't think we're going to get a full spring training schedule in there. But I would be shocked if anything gets done before March 1st. I think March 1st is like the ramp up day. Like, we need to start getting this taken care of now. I don't think anything's going to happen in January. Highly doubt anything's going to happen in February, just because there's no deadline. Like, they don't have to get a deal done. They're not missing any regular season games in February or January. So what's the point of getting the deal done? I'm talking from like the perspective of the owners. So yeah, I hope they don't miss any games. I hope they don't miss opening day, but if they miss opening day, man, it just further proves that I know Rob Manfred is not the end all be all to everything. He's more of a talking
He
piece.
works for the owners. Yeah.
He works for the owners, but this goes on him. He is the poster child. He is the guy that's in front of the cameras. He is the guy that's answering the questions. It goes on Rob Manfred. So to me, and everything he says too, it just sounds like he's totally out of touch. To me, if they miss games, it just further proves how horrible of a commissioner he is for baseball and in all sports.
And they just can't miss games. I can't have more missed games from Fernando Tatis Jr. We had the 60-game season. We had the health issues in 2019. We had some health issues in 2021. I want to see 162. I think
even
Padres
though I kind of wouldn't mind like 145 game season. I think that would be beneficial
but not
to
in
players.
this era. Yeah,
but not like this. Not like
this. And honestly, not in this era. If you're a Padres fan, you got Machado and Darvish and Snell and Tatis. I want to see them as much as I possibly and humanly can. I mean, this is the best era of Padres baseball, arguably. Now, it's not 96 and 98 as of yet. It's not Tony Gwynn's.
Well, it's not the best era because they haven't won anything.
I know, but I mean, it has the potential to be. This is the most hyped era. The most excitement around Padres baseball in franchise history, probably, especially post-NFL. I want to see these players on field. I want to see the Padres win, hopefully in 2022. All right, for the chat, comment below. When does the lockout end? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Also, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Keep pointing, Jim. Subscribe to the Wrap-Up Show. It's presented by Mark Nimitz at Farmers Insurance. Hit the notification bell as well. You'll be notified when we have new videos. We have exclusive year-round Padres content for you. Please like these videos and also follow us on Twitter at John Schaefer, at Jim Russell SD. Happy New Year. And until next time, this has been the Wrap-Up Show with John and Jim, presented by Mark Nimitz at Farmers Insurance.